thanks, Danelle. So for my bit, I ended up last time creating the frame where we're going to load the 3 bush cutters in so that we can use them together. For this demonstration, what I've done was I've split it out, the different members in my one part, and I've built an assembly that has everything already in here. So if I zoom in slightly, you'll see I've got all the members, I've got a couple of connection plates, I've got a couple of fasteners in there as well with some nuts. So all of those components have already been preloaded into my assembly. Now, while I've got my assembly open, sometimes it's necessary to quickly gain access to the total bill of materials or bill of quantities of all the items that is in my assembly. And one way to actually do that and gain access to that information is by generating a bill of materials inside of your assembly without having the need to make the drawing first. To do that, I'm going to use the bill of materials button. It will open up the bill of materials settings, and in here I've got a whole bunch of settings that I can go and play with to actually choose how I want to display the information in the BOM table. I can choose which one of the configurations do I want to generate the bill of materials of. I'll talk about configurations in my assembly just after this. And then I can also choose what it should do with part configurations, how it should react if I've got multiple parts with multiple parts with different configurations in them. I can also choose what it should do if I've got an item that no longer exists in my assembly. So I've got a couple of settings that I can play around with there. I'm going to leave everything as the default and just click the OK button. The moment I click OK, SOLIDWORKS is going to ask me to stick down the table onto an annotation view. I don't have one, so I'm just going to let it fly around over here so that I can see what it has. Zooming in, here you can see I've got my item numbers, part numbers, descriptions, and quantities. Now this will actually read what is in the assembly itself. So if there are stuff missing, it could be like descriptions. It's just a simple go to that part, fill out the description, and then it will reflect in your assembly. From here, I can now reuse this, so I can export this. I'm going to save it as an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to share it with Jason so that he can do some stuff with it later. The idea here is I am going to make an Excel spreadsheet that I can share with the procurement team or with someone who needs to go and get all of the items either from the storage facility or go and buy all of the things. I'm going to call this the BOM sheet. Right, I forgot to include the thumbnails now, but what I can go and do, let's actually do that. Let's go and save it just again. I'm going to change this to an Excel spreadsheet. Otherwise it won't work. And I'm going to include the thumbnails. Now, if you are not connected to the 3D Experience platform, and you need to share this table with someone outside of your design team who doesn't always know what a B1822.4M hex means, then this will include a little thumbnail of what the item actually looks like. So it's a great way to actually see what item it is and the number that goes along with it, so that you don't make mistakes like accidentally using the wrong item. Okay, now that I have my BOM table created, I've exported that. There we go. Let's go and have a look at the different configurations. So I have made 2 configurations in my assembly. The reason for this is I have, well, you saw there, I had 88 fasteners in my assembly. That's quite a lot. but it can get more. And fasteners is an item that from this point of view, looking at my assembly, I can't see them. I can't see where they are. I can't see the detail on them, but they are using a lot of resources. So for me to make my SOLIDWORKS perform a little bit better, I am going to suppress those things because I'm not going to need them at this level. And then once I've taken them out of the rebuild cycle, it's going to perform a lot better and I can do things a little bit quicker. The next step for me is to make a drawing so that the guys in the workshop actually knows what it is that we are making. So I'm going to make a new drawing of my assembly. I'm going to make a brand new drawing. And when I make a new drawing, SOLIDWORKS will always give you the option to choose the type of template and the size of the paper it is that you want to use. I have mine set up per default using my AMP template, and I'm just going to start off by inserting, let's maybe say my front view, and from here I can go and insert projection views, so insert more views around the same of the same item, but just in different projected views. So I'll add a top view and maybe a side view as well. Right, once I've inserted those views, I can go and add in more information. But before we add in too much information, let's first get the scale right of the views, or the ratio right for the views to my drawing. They're all quite small right now, which means I have to really zoom in to see what I'm looking at. And if you're going to print this, no one's going to see it. So let's go to my first view that I stuck down. Because I've used projection views, SOLIDWORKS will always look for the parent view first. So if I change the parent scale, my projected views will update automatically. So if I click on my parent view, or the view that I stuck down first, let's go through some of the settings that I have available. Over here, I can choose the configuration that I want to create the view of. I'm not going to read in my bolts and nuts just yet. I'll do that later. So I'm going to use the one without my fasteners. Here I can choose the orientation that I want to place down. I've got a couple of other settings here, so I can import things as well. If I've got any annotations that exist on the 3D model, like dimensions or notes, things like that, I can import them so that they are placed onto the view immediately when I stick the view down. I'm not going to do that because I want to show you how to insert those things. If you've got different display states, you can choose which display state to display on your drawing as well. Over here, you can choose the display style as well. And that is the style in which you are displaying the item. So if I changed it to shaded with edges, this is what it's going to look like. But I'm going to change it back to hidden lines so that I can actually see what's happening on my drawing. Another thing to think about as well, a lot of people like to show with hidden lines. That works well if you don't have a bazillion lines popping up on your drawing. So for my purpose of making a drawing, I'm not going to show that. Then we come to our scale. Now in SOLIDWORKS' drawings, you've got two different types of scales. Typically, you have the scale of the sheet size, and then you can go and create a custom scale. I'm going to change the sheet scale from 1:50 to something a little smaller or bigger because that's a little small. That's now too big. Let's make it 1:20. There we go. And the moment I make that change, you'll see that my projected view is actually updated as well. It might still be a little small. Again, I can always change it up, make it even bigger, use a bigger page. There's a bunch of stuff you can do to make things more visible for people. Okay. One of the other things that typically people forget about when making drawing views on a drawing is when you stick the view down first, there are always too many lines that will be displayed, like your tangent edge displays. Now, if I zoom into this portion over here, you'll see that over here you can see the tangent lines of the rounded corner on the inside and over here as well. So what do I do? To get rid of those things, it's a very simple thing to do. You can simply right click on your view. You can go to your tangent edge displays and have them be removed. Boom. And when I do that, it takes away those extra lines, which makes it a little bit difficult to print. And there we go. Now, under your annotation, there is a whole bunch of things that you can include onto your drawings. For me, I'm not going to do all of those, but when you are making something that is going to be machined, like a shaft or a flange, something that has a bunch of holes in them, you might want to consider using your center line and center mark options to mark out where the center line is, or to mark out where the center of a hole is going to be. They work quite easy. It's a simple click between two lines, or click the radius or the diameter of a circle or the hole, and it will place the center mark. There's a whole bunch of other things you can go and stick down as well. Some of them we'll look at a little bit later. For now, the first most immediate thing I want to go and include is going to be a dimension. So I'm going to start by adding in a smart dimension. Now, there are a couple of ways to insert a dimension. The quickest and easiest way to insert a dimension is using model items. And what that will do is it will include dimensions that exist on the model already. And it will then populate the dimensions all over the different views on your page, where it can be placed down. And then you can go and move them around where it would make sense. For me, I'm going to start with the smart dimension specifically because it's something that you almost always need to go and do. After you've placed down dimensions that exist, you might need to go and add dimensions that does not exist. So I'm going to add just a couple of dimensions into my drawing real quick. And if I stick down a dimension, there's a couple of settings you can go through, which we'll go through a little bit later. I first just want to stick them all down. Let's add one in over here for that angle. There we go. Right. So I can, of course, go ahead and add more dimensions and all the dimensions that I want to. But for now, I'm happy with what I currently have available. Now, one thing you'll notice is that the dimensions color is gray. It's different than my view. That's because it shows an absolute difference between a smart dimension and a model item. A model item will be black. You can double click to change its value and it will reflect the model immediately. A smart dimension is a measurement. It reflects what already exists. So I can't double click to change these values. But if I want everything to be printed on the same format or the same layer or the same color, I can actually go and do that. Now, to do something like that, let me first just go back to the settings of the dimensions and show you what we have over here. So when you create a smart dimension, you have 3 different tabs, one for the value, one for the leaders, and one for other stuff, which we'll get to as well. Now, under your value, you can come in here, you can choose the tolerance and the precision of the value itself. You can change the primary value as well if you want to overwrite it, which I would not recommend. You can add text to the dimension as well. So if you want to add length, you can go and add text to your dimensions as well for more information. Now for the leaders, you can control each individual dimension leader style. When you set up your drawing templates, you can of course control the global leader style for all of the dimensions and notes in your drawings. But if there's a specific one that you want to have stand out, you can change that one as well. Now, I'm going to just select all of the dimensions that I've created and click on my other tab, and over here I can add my dimensions to a specific layer. You can set up more layers, and here you will typically use the layers for printing reasons. So you can have a layer for printing and a layer to exclude on printing. And you can then add items to those different layers depending on how you want them to be printed. Right, now you'll see the color have changed, everything is black. There we go. Right, let's insert another sheet, and then we'll go and add the table that we created, or we can actually create a new one. So I'm going to start first by inserting a new view that doesn't exist on my drawing yet. I'm going to choose the configuration. Here I'm going to choose the fasteners one, and I'm going to use something a little different than before, and let's also go and change the scale. Here we go. Right, now that I've inserted my main view, I've added in the configuration with fasteners for a reason, but I cannot see fasteners from this point of view. All I see is some dots. So to actually see the fasteners, I'm going to insert a detail view. And to do that, I'm going to zoom into the area or areas. You can add multiple, of course. You don't have to just add one. I'm going to zoom into the area that I want to detail. I'm going to use this bit over here. I'm going to click on the detail view option. And I'm going to start by creating my detail view circle. Now there is a bunch of different options here. Again, you can choose what should, how big you actually can control how big the diameter of your circle is as well. And then when you place the view down, you are in complete control of this view itself. So here you'll see it's a little small. We'll change that now. Here I've got the notes. I've got the settings on the left-hand side again. I can control basically everything of the detail view here. So I can say I want to have a full outline of the view itself. Everything should be outlined. I can choose it should make the edges jagged where I'm cutting out material. That does look a little bit flowery, so I'm not going to do that. I can also control the style of the circle that I'm using over here. So currently it's per standard, but I can change that and say, you know what, let's attach a leader because it is a little small and I'd like to point where A is pointing to. Here at the bottom, I can go and change the scale again. I'm going to blow it up a little because 1:10 is still a little small. Let's make it a little bigger so that we can actually see what the bolts and nuts look like. And when I'm happy with that, let's move our note just so that it moves with the view and move this maybe a little downwards. You can play around, of course, with how everything is being displayed to make it look nice and readable, properly readable. And again, I can do right click on the view itself and remove any tangent edges that's displayed so that it takes away too many if there's too much information. Okay. Now the big thing, let's go and insert my BOM table. So under my annotations tab, the last button in the command manager is tables. So if I click the drop down over here, I can choose a whole different bunch of tables that exist. If I have an Excel-based BOM table, I can read that in. I don't want to use that. I want to read the table or read the information that exists on the model. So I'm going to use the normal bill of materials table. Again, I have a whole bunch of settings that I can go and include. I'm going to choose, this is the view that I want to create the bill of materials table from. And click OK and just stick it down once. Okay, now we can make it look nice by just dragging the view down slightly so that it doesn't interfere with each other. There we go. Okay, now I've got my bill of materials table in. Now, one of the other things that I want to show you is how to customize your table a little. If you're working with Wildmint items, you can of course include the cut list properties onto your BOM table as well. What I want to do is show you how to insert other information that can exist on these models. Now for me, I want to add one extra column to show the lengths of the members that I have in my frame. And to do that, I'm going to start by right-clicking on my table, going to insert a column to the right, and here I can choose what is it that I want to insert. I want to insert a custom property, but you've got a couple of different options to choose from here. And then whatever the custom property is, if the custom property exists on all the parts, it will be displayed over here. And there is my length. And if I click on it, it will automatically read that in onto my table. Now that I have that information on my table, I can then from here click on Auto Balloon to show which item belongs to which in my view. And again, I can go and just manipulate the way the view is being placed. Let's move this detail view out slightly. Okay. Now, one of the things that I cannot see on my main view is where the bolts and the nuts is being placed. So to do that, I am actually going to grab this item. So this is going to be the nut. I'm going to grab the note itself, or the BOM balloon itself, and just move it to where the actual nut is being displayed at. And over here I've got the bolt. It's pointing to a different bolt. All the bolts are the same. So I'm just going to again go and grab that little leader. Oopsie, wrong leader. And where are you? And stick it to this one over here. And now we can properly see who belongs to who when it comes to viewing the different things in my drawing. Okay. That is, in a nutshell, how you can quickly work your way from an assembly into a drawing, stick a few views down, make a few notes, or add a few, we haven't add notes, add a few dimensions, add a BOM table. One of the other things I want to take your attention to is your model will have properties that moves along with it. And you can call up those properties in a note by using a note tied to a custom property. Or in your title block, you can add those notes and reflect them from the model. So I am reflecting the drawing number as well as the mass. And the mass can actually show the correct information displayed from the model. Well, not just the mass. All of the properties can show the correct information displayed from the model.